Stage 1. The Gym Rat. You are 14 years old and you have just been thrown onto a mat for the 5th time in 10 minutes by a 16-year-old who weighs 30 pounds less than you and is not even breathing hard. This is the most important moment of your life. You just don't know it yet. You ended up here by accident, the way most people end up in a fighting gym for the first time, not through careful planning or deep self-knowledge, but through a specific combination of circumstances that pushed you through a door you might never have opened deliberately. Maybe a friend dragged you. Maybe you watched a UFC event on a Saturday night and something in your chest responded to it in a way that felt more like recognition than excitement. Maybe you just needed somewhere to put the energy that your body produces in quantities that normal life cannot absorb. Whatever brought you here, here is where you are. On a mat that smells like years of sweat baked into rubber, in a gym that is not glamorous by any standard, cracked mirrors, heavy bags that have been taped and retaped until the tape is the structural component, a cage in the corner that has seen better decades, and a coach who is watching you get thrown around with the particular expression of someone looking for something specific and not yet sure if you have it. He is not looking for talent. Talent is common. Every gym has talented kids who disappear within a year because talent without the other thing is just potential waiting to expire. He is looking for the other thing. The response to adversity. The moment when a 14-year-old who has just been thrown onto a mat for the 5th time makes the decision that the 5th time means nothing and gets back up for the 6th. You get back up. The coach's expression doesn't change, but something shifts behind it. He files you away under a category that has no formal name, but that he has been using for 30 years of coaching fighters, the ones worth investing in. The gym becomes your second home within a month and your first home within 3. You are there before school when the doors open at 6 in the morning, doing the strength and conditioning work that the coach has given you, the basics, squats, pulls, carries, movements that build the athletic foundation that everything else will eventually be built on. You are there after school for the technical sessions. You are there on weekends when your friends are doing what teenagers do on weekends, and you are drilling the same armbar entry for the 40th time because it is still not smooth enough, still has a hesitation in the middle where your body hasn't quite accepted what your brain is trying to tell it. You get submitted constantly. Choked, armbarred, leg locked, swept, passed, dominated by people who have been doing this longer than you, which at this stage is everyone. The submission is not the failure. The submission is the lesson. Every time someone catches you, it is because something in your game has a hole, and the hole has been located and demonstrated, and now you know where it is, and you go back to drilling until the hole closes. This is the learning loop of martial arts, and it never ends. Not at 14, and not at 40. And the fighters who understand this early are the ones who eventually go somewhere. You start competing at 16. Amateur level, local shows, venues that are more community hall than arena, crowds of 200 people who are largely the families and teammates of the fighters on the card. Your first fight lasts 47 seconds. Not because you win in 47 seconds, because you lose in 47 seconds, caught in a guillotine choke from a position you should not have been in, making a mistake that you drilled against 100 times and made anyway because drilling and competing are different countries that share a border but have completely different weather. You tap, the referee steps in, you stand up, your coach is at the cage door, he says 4 words, "Good, now we work." That is the entire debrief. In those 4 words is everything that the next 10 years of your life will be organized around. Stage 2. The Amateur Grind. You are 18 and you have had 11 amateur fights. Your record is 8 wins and 3 losses, and the losses are more educational than the wins, which is something you understand intellectually and are still working on accepting emotionally, because losing, even now, even after 2 years of being taught that losing is data, still produces a feeling in your body that takes 3 days to metabolize completely. Amateur mixed martial arts is invisible to the general public in a way that should be more surprising than it is. The shows happen in regional venues, streamed to small online audiences, if streamed at all, reported on by local combat sports websites that have readerships measured in hundreds rather than thousands. The fighters on these cards are working full-time jobs or attending school full-time or both, training in the hours around those obligations, funding their own equipment and their own travel and their own competition fees, doing all of this for the love of a sport that has not yet decided to love them back in any material sense. You are working part-time at a warehouse. The hours are early morning, You arrange this specifically so that your afternoons and evenings are free for training. Your pay covers rent on a small apartment you share with two other fighters from your gym, your food, your gym membership, and very little else. Your parents have mixed feelings about all of this that they express with varying degrees of directness depending on the month and how your training is going. You love them for worrying and cannot explain to them in terms they fully accept why the worry is unnecessary. What you are building in these years is not visible from the outside. From the outside, it looks like a young man making economically suboptimal choices in pursuit of an unlikely dream, and statistically speaking, that assessment is not wrong. The percentage of amateur fighters who reach the UFC is not large. You know the percentage. You have thought about the percentage and concluded that percentages are descriptions of populations and not predictions about individuals, and that the individual question, the question of whether you specifically have what is required, can only be answered by continuing until the answer becomes clear. Your 8th win is the one that matters. Not because of the win itself, because of what happens in the 3rd round of a fight you are losing. Down on the scorecards, tired in a way that has gone past physical and into something psychological, facing an opponent who is better than you in 2 of the 3 phases of the sport and who knows it, you find something. Not a technique, not a tactical adjustment. Something underneath the technique and the tactics, a place in yourself that the exhaustion and the deficit and the pressure cannot reach. You finish the fight from that place, and afterward you sit in the dressing room and you know that you found something tonight that changes the ceiling of what you are capable of. Your coach knows too. He says nothing about it directly. He begins booking your amateur career differently after that fight. Harder opponents, shorter notice. Different regions, different rule sets, different styles, every variable rotated deliberately to stress your development in every direction simultaneously. He is preparing you for something. You both know what it is. Neither of you says it yet. Stage 3. The Regional Professional Circuit. You turn professional at 19. Your first professional fight pays you $500 to show and $500 if you win. You win. You spend the $1,000 on next month's rent and the gym fees you owe, and a new mouthguard because your last one has been compressed by 2 years of use into something that no longer fits correctly. The professional regional circuit is the place where most fighting careers end and a small number of fighting careers begin to separate themselves from the rest. You are fighting on regional promotions, Cage Warriors, LFA, Titan FC, Bellator's developmental pipeline, the alphabet soup of organizations that exist between the amateur level and the UFC, each one a rung on a ladder that gets narrower the higher you climb. The quality of opponent rises with every fight in a way that amateur competition never quite prepared you for. These are men who are also professionals, who are also serious, who have also spent years building toward this, and who have every intention of ending your night early and advancing their own career at your expense. The politeness of the handshake before the fight and the respect of the touch of gloves at the center of the cage are genuine. There is a brotherhood in fighting that is unlike almost any other competitive sport, a mutual recognition between two people who have chosen the same difficult path, but they do not soften what happens in the minutes between the opening bell and the final horn. Your 3rd professional fight is the hardest thing you have ever done. 5 rounds. You pushed for a 5-round main event, and your coach negotiated it because 5-round fights are where careers are defined, and he wants you defined early. By the 4th round, you are beyond tired, in a way that language doesn't quite reach. Your arms are heavy, your legs are making decisions that your brain is requesting rather than commanding. Your opponent is in similar condition, and the fight has become 2 men testing something in each other that has nothing to do with technique anymore. You win by decision. Unanimous. The judges' scorecards are read, and your hand is raised, and the crowd, a couple of thousand people, the biggest you have fought in front of, makes a noise that you feel in your chest. You stand in the center of the cage with your hand raised, and you look out at those 2,000 people, and you think about the mat in the gym at 14 years old. The smell of rubber, the 16-year-old who threw you 5 times in 10 minutes. The coach's expression that didn't change but shifted behind the eyes. You think about how far the journey is between that moment and this one, and then you think about how far the journey is between this moment and the one that is still coming. Stage 4. The Call. Your record stands at 11 wins and 1 loss. The loss was 2 years ago, early in your professional career, A learning experience that you have addressed so thoroughly in training that the hole it revealed no longer exists in any form your current opponents have managed to find. You have won your last 7 fights, 4 by finish, and your name has begun appearing in the kind of conversations that happen online among people who follow the regional circuit closely and know the difference between a fighter who is good at this level and a fighter who is ready for the next one. The call comes on a Tuesday, not a call from the UFC directly. A call from your manager, who has been fielding interest for 3 months and negotiating in the background while you trained and fought and lived the regional circuit life without knowing exactly how close the door was to opening. Your manager's voice has a quality in the first 3 words that tells you everything before the sentence is finished. He says they called, and the rest of the sentence is administrative detail that your brain processes at a delay because the first 2 words have taken up all available processing capacity. The UFC. You are going to the UFC. You sit with the phone in your hand after the call ends. You are in your apartment, still shared with 2 other fighters, still modest, still organized around the fundamental priority of training and competing above everything else, and the afternoon light is coming through the window at the angle it comes through at this time of year, and everything looks exactly the same as it looked an hour ago, and nothing is the same as it was an hour ago. You call your coach, you call your parents, your mother makes a sound on the phone that you have never heard her make before, and that you will remember for the rest of your life. Your father, who has attended every fight you have ever had, including the amateur ones in the community halls, says very little. He has been saying very little about your career for years and meaning everything by it. Stage 5. The UFC Debut Fight Week. Las Vegas. The Performance Institute. The hotel. The media obligations. Interviews, face-offs, content creation, the machinery of promotion that surrounds a UFC event and that you have watched from the outside for years and are now inside of, which is a completely different experience from the watching. The weigh-ins. The weight cut has been brutal this camp, not dangerously so. You have a professional nutritionist managing the process, but the final 24 hours of making weight is a specific kind of suffering that every fighter accepts as the cost of competing at the weight class they have chosen. You step on the scale under the lights with cameras pointed at you, and the number comes up and you have made weight, and the relief is physical, a loosening in the chest that has been tight for a week. Fight night. The arena holds 20,000 people. You have never been in a building this size for a fight. The walk to the cage, your music, your team around you, the tunnel giving way to the arena floor and the crowd noise hitting you like a pressure change, is unlike anything you have experienced in a sport full of experiences that are unlike anything else. The cage door closes behind you. The referee goes through his instructions. You look across the octagon at your opponent. A fighter with a UFC record, a fighter who has been here before, a fighter who is looking back at you with the specific focus of someone who has prepared for this moment for 8 weeks and intends to make it count. You touch gloves. The referee steps back. The crowd reaches a volume that should be distracting and is instead clarifying, all the noise collapsing into a single point of focus that is the man across from you and the space between you that is about to cease to exist. You think about nothing. That is the achievement of all those years of training. Not the techniques, not the tactics, not the physical conditioning, though all of those things are present and operational. The achievement is the empty mind, the mind that has rehearsed every scenario enough times that it no longer needs to think about them. That simply responds, that is simply there, in the moment, doing what it was built to do. The fight happens. It is not the fight you planned. Fights are never the fight you planned. The plan survives contact with the opponent for approximately 30 seconds, and then it becomes improvisation guided by principle, which is what all the drilling was actually preparing you for. You get hurt in the second round. A shot that lands clean and sends a white flash across your vision and drops your legs for a fraction of a second that feels much longer from the inside. You do not go down. You survive the moment the way you survived the 4th round of that 5-rounder on the regional circuit. From the place that exhaustion and pressure cannot reach, you win. Not easily, not cleanly, in the way that real fights are won, by the fighter who, in the worst moments, finds the most. The decision is read, and your hand is raised, and 20,000 people make a sound that you feel in every part of your body simultaneously. You stand in the center of the octagon. The cameras are on you, the lights are on you, the noise is everywhere. You are are a UFC fighter, not a prospect, not a regional champion, not a kid getting thrown onto a mat by a 16-year-old who isn't even breathing hard. A UFC fighter. Stage 6. The climb. Winning your debut is the beginning of the hardest part. Not the hardest fight, the hardest sustained challenge. The UFC roster is the highest concentration of elite fighting talent on the planet, and every opponent from here forward has cleared the same bar you just cleared, which means the bar that separated you from everyone below it no longer exists, and the bar above you is the only one that matters. You win your next 3 fights. You lose the 4th, a title eliminator against a top 5 opponent who exposes something in your game that your team missed in camp or saw and underestimated, and the loss is the kind that requires real work to process, not because it damages your confidence, but because it forces a comprehensive reassessment of where you are relative to where you need to be. You do the reassessment, you find the holes, you fill the holes. You go back to the mat at 6 in the morning and drill and drill and drill until the holes are architecture rather than absence, not just closed, but converted into strengths that your next opponent will not see coming. This is the fighter's life at every stage. Not the lights and the walkouts and the crowds and the hand being raised. Those moments exist and they are real and they are extraordinary. But they are the surface. Underneath is the mat, the smell of rubber, the 6 in the morning, the 40th repetition of the same technique because the 39th was not yet smooth enough. Underneath every UFC fighter at every stage of the climb is a 14-year-old being thrown onto a mat for the 5th time. Getting up for the 6th, always getting up for the 6th. That is the whole story. Everything else is just what happens when you refuse to stay down.